This should have been Ubisoft's easiest win in decades. A beloved Assassin's Creed title, Edward Kenway, pirates, naval combat, game that fans have been clamoring for years. How awesome would it be if Ubisoft simply remade Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag? And Ubisoft does. They actually do what fans wanted, have been asking for. And yet somehow, the very fans that were asking for this are suspicious. But when companies play not to lose instead of playing to win, they will inevitably reach for safe designs and innovation, as well as safer moves. So that can take the shape of remakes, it can take the shape of live service, it can take the shape of sequels, it can even take the shape of nostalgia. All of these are simply manifestations of companies that simply are playing not to lose. It's quite rare that you'd see them actually taking bold steps towards creating a new IP. So when you actually look at it on paper, Black Flag is by far one of the safest moves that Ubisoft could have possibly made. But then there's actually a deeper layer beneath this. Because sometimes the question isn't whether you can actually survive failure, but what happens if you actually go about your redemption arc and people don't even believe that you are actually sincere in doing so? They doubt your recovery. Now, for those of you that are joining us, the current conversation discussion that we're having is quite simple. So the idea is modern gaming has become too big to fail. So companies no longer make games, they simply make risk-controlled products. So that takes the shape of your remakes, nostalgia, sequels, and Black Flag is all of that wrapped into a nice, neat, beautiful, badass pirate game. So let's set the stage here. Black Flag is not some forgotten, low barrel, low effort kind of game that was released back in the day. This is by far one of the best titles that have ever come out of Ubisoft. It is not debatable if we say that after Ubisoft abandoned the Desmond story arc, that the series as a whole started to tend towards a decline. And somehow, out of that decline, we got an anomaly. Something that we were not supposed to actually come across. Somehow, we hit pay dirt. We struck pay dirt. When everyone's saying that this gold mine has run dry of gold streams, somehow we hit the mother lode. We struck oil. That's what Black Flag was. No one actually expected it to be as good as it became. And to be fair, guys, this doesn't look like what you might call a lazy port. I mean, first and foremost, the character models look gorgeous. They brought back stealth crouching now. It's even improved. Now you can actually toggle stealth instead of just, automatically going into stealth when you go into the bushes. The trailing missions have been improved as well. Now instead of just getting mission failed, the story continues, and that's nice. We have dynamic weather systems now. The Jackdaw has new weapons and armor. We have animals now on the ship. I mean, what kind of a captain are you if you don't have a parrot or a monkey on your side? Really completes the look. And we even got shanties back. We got shanties, man. For me, as soon as when they were actually going through the presentation, I was watching it, and as soon as I saw the combat, oh yes, the combat has also been retuned. Very nice as well. I'm watching all of that, I'm going, yeah, that's nice. But where are me shanties, matey? Where are me shanties? And then they showed the shanties, and we even got new shanties that are gonna be in the game. And for me, that's what I lost. I was like, man, just take my money, man. Shanties, one of the best features that could have been incorporated in an Assassin's Creed game, especially a pirate game. One of my favorite shanties. What shall we do with a drunken sailor? What shall we do with a drunken sailor? What shall we do with a drunken sailor? Early in the morning. Shanties, man. Shanties. You got me, Ubisoft. You have won me over. So let's be honest. If fans were asking Ubisoft to, dude, come back to your roots, Ubisoft, man. Come back to the motherland, man. Go back to your roots. This answer from Ubisoft isn't the worst one they could possibly give. I mean, let's be honest, this is not the worst they could have done. This is beautiful. And that's actually what makes the backlash or the backfire even more interesting and more intriguing. Because when you look at it, the backlash isn't necessarily about the remake. The backlash is about Ubisoft specifically. People are not necessarily concerned about whether it actually looks good or not, whether it's a faithful remake, right? People are asking, what's the catch, man? We know you, bro. Like, what's your angle? What's the fine print? That's the thing that people are reacting to here. Because the thing is, when your trust capital is high, a remake looks like respect. That's why a company like Capcom can remake Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, 4, and still get respect from the fan base and still make money off of that. But when your trust capital is depleted, even when your best intentions are actually honest and sincere, that in and of itself actually serves as evidence as to why people shouldn't believe you. Because of your past actions. You have not been doing or taking the necessary actions and steps that show that you actually care about trust. That's what we're seeing right now with Ubisoft. It's quite funny when you're actually looking at it from as a whole. This situation is actually quite funny. People are hurt, man. Instead of them seeing respect, people are seeing exploitation and extraction. Because you hurt them, Ubisoft. You hurt people real bad. Now, I want to actually defend Ubisoft here. Just hear me out for a second. I want to try my best to defend what Ubisoft is actually doing right now. Because there are two sides of this thing that needs to be properly examined and exhumed before we actually give an accurate judgment on the matter. So firstly, I don't think that the take, Ubisoft is bad and fans are good, is actually quite useful. That take is far too simplistic, far too neat. Because here's the thing, guys. This is what we have to understand, first and foremost. Ubisoft is a company. They are not your friend. They're not your spouse. They are not your brother or your sister or your sibling. They are a company. And that means that they don't owe you emotional loyalty. The contract that we have with Ubisoft is very simple. Create something that is worth buying, and we will buy. If you don't, we don't pay. That is the nature of our relationship. So if Ubisoft is actually improving on the original, retuning the combat, adding better shanties, improving character models, introducing dynamic weather patterns, introducing animals on the ship, brand new companions and brand new storylines that you can actually pursue, and it somehow affects the weapons that you get on the ship, then yes, Ubisoft deserves credit for that. They deserve credit for moving in the right direction. So, why doesn't that simply end the debate? Because like I already said, fans are not over here reacting in a vacuum. They're reacting to past behavior. So they're reacting to the over-monetization practices, greedy practices that Ubisoft has been engaged with over the years. Shutting down games, becoming a threat to game preservation, telling people they're not going to be able to own what they buy or what they purchase. Live service models of some of Ubisoft's games. The formulaic nature of Ubisoft games. RPG mechanics when they're not even necessary in Ubisoft titles and games. So when you take all of that into consideration, you can understand why people would be extremely hesitant when Ubisoft says, yeah, you can get this game for about $60. They go, huh? When Ubisoft says, you can get this game for $60 and the original multiplayer is not actually there or included. People are like, huh? When Ubisoft says, you can get this game for $60, no original multiplayer, and no Freedom Cry DLC. People are like, this nigga, what you saying, man? You think I'm an idiot? What'd you take me for, man? So even if the remake is actually something that is respectful, the audience doesn't see that. They see the missing pieces, they see the price tag, they see the company logo, and the suspicion narrative writes itself. What do you want people to do? And this is where the backfire begins. Because sometimes the more you try to avoid a problem, the more you actually feed the problem. Like, for example, take the case of PlayStation and this whole DRM thing. When this matter came out, first and foremost, it wasn't even that serious. Up until people started finding evidence that apparently, if you buy a game and it's been 30 days, you don't reconnect, you don't have access to that game anymore. That started picking up fire. It started becoming a storm. And Sony could have simply ended this thing immediately. Shut it down, issue a statement, and tell them that's not the case. And peace returns to the realms. But no, Sony kept quiet. Sony acts like, I've never heard of such a thing. I just don't know. And then a firestorm erupted, and now it's biting Sony in the ass. That's the backfire that's happening. So in Ubisoft's case, after years of mismanagement, they decide that instead of addressing that, what we're going to do now, we're going to try our best to reduce the risk. And how do you do that? By reaching into our bag of nostalgia and taking out a remake of Assassin's Creed Black Flag, right? This way, not only do we actually get the customer's money, allegations of we are not Assassin's Creed anymore will vanish because we're going back to roots, right? This is a beloved game, and this is a safer formula. What could possibly go wrong? But the thing that they didn't account for is the fact that since you have broken trust, your trust capital meter has become depleted. Even the safe moves that you make no longer feel safe. They drip with suspicion. The safety you were going for comfort has become the trap that ensnares you now. And this is the weird part, right? Fans have been saying for years, Ubisoft, my guy, stop being so greedy, man. Ubisoft, my guy, enough with the RPG mechanics. Ubisoft, my guy, return to roots. Ubisoft, this isn't you. Stop chasing trends, man. Just go back to what you used to do best. What did Ubisoft do? Like a rebellious teen, they didn't listen. And now they come back to us like Nolan, acting like, I've changed. I'm a new man now. I'm no longer who I used to be. I'm trying to be different now. It's like, nigga, we don't give a fuck. We're like, really? If that's true, then why $60? Where's the multiplayer? Where's the DLC? Since you changed, right? Why does the original still look better than this thing? That's what people think. I don't blame people for doing that. It's crazy how, when you look at it, you might actually think it's fans simply being hard to please. But unless you know the backstory, that's not really the case. The real story is just a really sad tale that I think we've come across not just one. It's simply a tale of trust being broken, trust collapsing. Fans don't want the old Assassin's Creed back. No, they want the confidence, they want the care, they want the respect that says we understand why this game was beloved in the first place. So where does that leave us? Do we just trust Ubisoft? Especially since they're actually going the right way now, do we just have to trust them? No, the thing is, we don't trust Ubisoft. Ubisoft is a company, they follow incentives. So our job is to control those incentives or to influence the incentives that get the companies to act a certain way. And we do that by supporting initiatives like Stop Killing Games. Because by supporting such initiatives, you are influencing the system of incentives that gets companies to respect you as the consumer. Because you can't trust Ubisoft. They will always do what's in their best interest. Or if you control the incentives, then they have no choice but to act accordingly. So, personally, I don't think that Ubisoft should be hated forever. I think if they make a good game, if they make a good remake, then they should get credit for that. But I don't pretend that this suspicion actually came out of a vacuum where it came out of nowhere. Ubisoft trained their fans and trained their audience to be this way. So in a way, this is just the consequences of my actions. If I were to sum it up in a nice little bow, because of the damage that Ubisoft has done, it's got people asking, I wonder what they've taken out from this game. Will this game be preserved? Why are they charging so much? That ain't just negativity. We're talking the cost of damaged trust capital. That's what this is. And that's why the discourse surrounding Black Flag Resynced matters so much. Not because it proves that Ubisoft is evil or that fans are ungrateful, but it simply proves that, or rather, it simply shows that the safer that Ubisoft actually tries to be, the less safe it actually looks in the end. And that's probably the signs and symptoms or consequences that are most likely to follow from fragile companies that have been nickeling and diming their customers for a long time. That's the backfire. When trust is depleted, companies don't just have to make better products. They have to overcome the story that people believe about it.